Kate Mila-Falcha, welcome to Irish Granny Helen. And I am thrilled and delighted and honored to welcome my returning guest, the globally famous author, Sarah Jordan-Heintz. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
This is going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to this. So Sarah wrote the book that we're covering on our weekends recently. This week we'll be doing, you will have just watched the last video when you see our conversation. Sarah also wrote this book that we covered previously, Dorothy Kilgallen. If you're curious, and this is such a great book, if you're curious, those videos, I believe I made a playlist, but you can scroll, And I will add this to your rapidly increasing oeuvre.
Yeah.
So this is a great book, and I have a couple of questions before we dig into the book. So I think you would call yourself a journalist and an author, and there is a distinction, right? But they kind of cross paths, don't they, in this book? Yeah. So do you keep like enormous lists of facts and information that maybe one day you can dig into?
It certainly helps. A lot of stuff's on my computer, maybe just chunks of paragraphs, sentences, ideas, or just even notes to self. I do some fiction writing as well. So if I come up with an idea for a character or a plot or anything I want to develop further, but it hasn't come to me yet, it's nice to kind of have that note to self file compartment.
As a mom, I know you have a little one. How old is she now? 3?
Louisa will be 3 next month.
Yeah, I'm good, huh? She's adorable, you guys. She's so cute. I just remember when my children were little at that age, I did not have the internal capacity to be creative. It was all I could do to like brush my teeth, get out of bed in the morning. It's hard. How do you do it?
Well, it certainly helps. My mom, Julie, spends a lot of time with Louisa. My dad helps as well, certainly, as you know from speaking to him as an author as well. So it kind of helps in that way, research and, have kind of a sounding board, right? So having a family of writers and people that are supportive and can have a place for Louisa to be while I'm working is really essential.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why it was harder for me, because we don't have family around at all. And so it kind of was on me for a very long time. And I did find that having children, I think all your creative juices go into creating the children. And then you don't have anything left over for personal, expression. So this is, it's been liberation, I got to tell you. I'm just curious. Oh, and you're a Midwesterner. We should add that, because this is focusing on Midwesterners who ended up in Hollywood. But I thought before we talk about the book, I want to pick your brain a little bit. So, I mean, we have to admit that different genres of movies are so different. It's apples and oranges. How do you compare, right? So I was going to ask you, start out with your favorite genre of movie.
Oh, I'm a big film noir fan.
Me too. What's your favorite film noir?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I want to say Double Indemnity. I know
that's my favorite.
Because I love Barbara Stanwyck. Always have loved Barbara Stanwyck. Really love Robert Mitchum. He just has that great kind of world weary. Was it Out of the Past? I can't remember, where he's just walking in the rain and he just looks like he doesn't even care anymore.
He was always stoned. He was great. He was an iconoclast, quiet about it. That's hilarious. That's my favorite movie, my favorite female film noir star. I love it. So then I was going to ask you to tell me your favorite movie. You already did that. But there are so many other kinds of movies, difficult to compare. So what would you say were maybe your top 5? And that's really putting you on the spot. I know that.
Well, I know we're kind of the same on some of this. I love All About Eve. As you know, Anne Baxter is one of the people featured in my book.
Oh, I know you love
That
her.
was fun to be able to talk to one of her children, to get a few of those insidery tidbits on Anne's life. And I always liked Imitation of Life, as particularly the original version with Claudette Colbert.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, Lana Turner was in the remake with
Yeah,
Sam.
I don't
Oh, okay.
at all. At all.
Okay.
There's a whole period of time in movies that I found wholly unsatisfying. Maybe and it's a little, the boundaries are a little vague, but maybe mid 50s to mid 60s. They were so gendered
Yes.
and so formulaic, and you'd turn on a movie that took place in the Roman Empire, and they all have the 1950s hair and the 1950s makeup. There was something very artificial about them that just didn't appeal to me. I think the reality of film noir is one of its appeals. Listen to me talking like I know what I'm talking about. But I think that movies they resonate on a personal level when they speak to you with some sort of authenticity. And I think our differences in ages make a big difference, because I remember that time period. I lived through that time period. And, it was just, so I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Okay.
Keep going. Yeah.
My husband Andy is a big Bogart fan, so we've been going through a lot of his movies. And there's one, I think it's kind of strangely named, but it's called Conflict. And it's a really great film noir, just because I don't think the title says enough about it. But I really, really like that one. I think it's called Conflict. Anyway, if that's not the title, it's the one where Bogart wants to get rid of his wife, and I believe to take up with the younger, more alluring sister. And so he kills her. But then there's these weird kind of hints of, is she dead? Like messages, glimpses of her, kind of driving him insane, of trying to figure out, is he really seeing his wife? If so, how did she survive, and what's going on? So I think Alexis Smith is in that one. She's the gal he wants to get.
The cute young thing.
Yeah.
I liked his Philip Marlowe,
Yeah.
was that Maltese Falcon? Am I remembering that right?
Yes, and there were several people who played the Marlowe characters.
Yeah, that's right.
If you don't mind for 1 second, I just want to make sure I have that movie correct. But yeah, so we've been going through a little bit of I would say a phase of that. Yes, it is. It is.
Bogart kind of went through a renaissance when I was late teens, early 20s, in the 70s ish. It was very fashionable to be really into Bogart, and this is before Netflix. So if you were going to see a movie, you had to find some theater that played old movies at night, or go to a film festival, or hope your college. My college used to have Wednesday night movies, 25 cents for students. I think about that, it blows my mind. So would you say that the whole beginning to end of moviedom, do you have one standout favorite?
Oh, favorite film?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's All About Eve.
All About Eve.
For sure. Yeah. I love
I'm
it.
torn. I loved, and I know this is not politically correct, I loved Gone with the Wind. It was one of the few movies I've ever seen that actually looked like what I imagined in my head when I read the book. It was 5 hours long, and I was upset that they didn't include the whole book.
The rest of us were like, does it ever end?
And you had to go to the theater to see it. They would re-release it periodically, like maybe every 15 years. And so it was a big deal when it actually was available to see. But I also loved, and this is not the world's most popular movie, but it spoke to me at a time and a place, Harold and Maude.
Oh.
Did you ever see that?
I haven't, but I've heard about it.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I've heard good things. Well, I like Ruth Gordon.
Yes.
She's certainly an icon. So I don't know. I'm willing to give it a chance.
Oh, you should watch it. It's so interesting. You know, she was a script writer, right? She wrote screenplays, right?
I remember she was married to, wasn't it Garson?
Garrison, yeah,
Garson Kanan? Cannon?
Kanan, something, yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and they were like the power couple for a
Mhm.
really long time, but also on stage. She did stage performance too. But in the movie, I don't think this is a spoiler. It's been out since the early 70s.
Go ahead.
She was a Holocaust survivor. And you don't get that right away. And then eventually you realize, oh, now I get what's going on. Um, the young man who played the young man,
Mm.
um, he had a really sad story. After they made the movie, he was driving one night on the LA freeway and someone's car had broken down and he hit it going, I don't know, 70 miles an hour and totally destroyed his face. He had to have extensive plastic surgery. He was lucky he survived. And it kind of ended his career because he never looked quite the same.
I can see
And
that.
wasn't there another Hollywood star who had something similar happen? Friends with Elizabeth Taylor.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, Montgomery Clift.
Montgomery Clift. Yeah, same thing, you know, and he died sadly substances because I think that had a lot to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in one of my favorite movies with Anne Baxter, I Confess, and that's a Hitchcock movie. That's
I love the little tidbits. Well, we'll get to it. The
yeah.
little tidbits in this book that I've been telling people. Did you know? And they're like, "What?"
Mhm.
It's great. It's fun. So anyway, and okay. So before we move forward with the book,
Mhm.
favorite male and female star, and I know it's hard, but Sophie's choice. Favorite star.
Like in general, or the people featured?
Oh, in general. In
Okay.
general.
Okay. Um, I feel like Barbara Stanwyck and Betty Davis, and maybe one more, calling Barbara my favorite actress, Betty my favorite movie star, maybe making a little distinction.
Gotcha.
Cary Grant, always. And I'm a big David Niven fan too. And
Oh, I love David Niven. Yes.
he, I mean, I love The Bishop's Wife. I put up with it even though Loretta Young is in it. I, you know,
At
and
least it's not Greer Garson.
yeah.
Sorry.
So I love it. You know, being Episcopalian, I love that movie too. And I feel like Cary Grant and David Niven play so well off of each other in that. So he's a favorite, and I would say one of my all-time favorites too, who's in the book, is Spencer Tracy.
Oh, Spencer
Yeah.
Tracy evokes certain familial issues for me.
No.
But I will say this, Father of the Bride
Yeah.
was
That's a great
genius. I periodically
Yeah.
rewatch that. I love the original Father of the
Yes.
Bride.
Yeah.
Love that movie.
Yeah.
Who was I going to mention? And now I just made myself forget. Oh, Cary Grant
Mhm.
is my absolute favorite. In fact, I don't know if you heard me critique your opinion.
Oh,
You said something about Rock Hudson being the classic Hollywood
mhm.
handsome. I said I disagree.
Mhm.
I think I'm sorry, Cary Grant was
Yeah. I
rebuilt.
mean, they're both certainly that tall, dark, and handsome persona. I mean, you could say, really.
Yeah, you
Them in
could,
that
and
same.
and if you had to pick, I'd go with Cary Grant.
Well, I think we would all pick Cary Grant, but, you know, just kind of recognizing that time with Rock, that was just
Typical,
he was
yeah.
really the epitome. I think he was kind of that dreamboat kind of
Oh
fantasy,
yeah, yeah.
right? And you have to take it for what it was for that time period, that was
Well,
considered.
you can see it reflected in a lot of TV stuff. He was the elevated Mr. Brady on the Brady Bunch, same type, but you know what I mean? There was just a type of man that was more put forward. Cary Grant and Mae West, and She Done Him Wrong. Oh my God, the chemistry between those two. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, yeah.
Unreal. Yeah. And then I usually don't like tearjerkers, but
Mhm.
Pennies from Heaven. Do you remember that one where they adopt a little
Wow.
girl?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been a
oh,
that I've loved.
break my heart.
Yeah, I mean, I do like musicals. They're not my all-time favorite, depends on who's in them. But, I mean, I love Eleanor Powell and Fred Astaire. Like, Eleanor never gets enough credit. She was such a fabulous dancer, so I'll watch anything with her in it. where it's just kind of the random breaking out into song when it's like past the jam and they're up on the table. I'm like, whoa, like that doesn't happen
I
where
love it.
like, okay, like I mean, I like more movies that have music as the soundtrack, like let's say Saturday Night Fever, where it makes sense that there's music going on, than just I'm going to randomly sing about my grape jelly kind of out of nowhere.
I don't know. You could sing about your grape jelly and your peanut butter. I would be happy.
I mean,
I
it's not as
love.
natural to me for some of
Yeah,
those. Although I love Singing in the Rain. Debbie Reynolds, a treasure.
yeah.
Love her.
Singing in the rain is
Love.
wonderful. Gene Kelly, I treasure him. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Um, have you seen? Oh God, no, I'm so bad. Jonathan. He's modern. I always forget his name. He was in that, what's it called, like a charity program that they do every year, a fundraiser, um, from Broadway. It's called Miscast,
Oh,
and they
okay.
put unlikely stars in roles, and they
Oh,
sometimes volunteer and sometimes they get a call. We think this would be
cool.
really funny or clever,
I
like
love.
they had two guys do that solo from Sound of Music. I am 16 going on 17. Oh my God, it was
That sounds great.
so hilarious. He played King George in Hamilton.
Okay. Not it's just not clicking right now, but that sounds interesting.
He also played the young detective in the series Mindhunter, which is based on Jonathan Douglas's books. He was the one who helped to start. He and Robert Ressler and some other guy, they helped to start the profiling, FBI profiling. That was not a thing, and Groff, Jonathan Groff, it just came to me. Yeah. But anyway, let's concentrate on the book since that's what
Sure.
we're here to talk about. This is a great book. It's so entertaining. There's so much in it that I did not know. What struck you? Let's start with Clark Gable.
Mhm.
What struck you that you didn't know that you found out?
Well, I mean, I guess what comes to mind, of course, is just that relationship with Loretta Young. No matter how it all came about, having this child, Judy Lewis, um, and just wondering, really, Gable didn't know either one of his children. Kay was pregnant at
Yeah.
the time of his death, and just
Yes.
how odd that is. I mean, just not the norm of having a child you don't either acknowledge or having after your death. So thought that was interesting. And of course, Carol Lombard's featured in her own chapter, but I kind of, as you saw, lives intersected, especially for some of
Yeah,
the
it was interesting how you made that progression. I liked that. Yeah, there
people.
was a continuity. Yeah.
Yeah, Harlow too, working with Gable, some of their lives intersected. So certainly discovering that intersection. And of course, I purposely ended things with Luella Parsons because she's interwoven throughout everyone's.
Oh, you can't get her to shut up.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
everywhere.
So
Yeah.
seeing her involvement, whether it's I need the scoop on your marriage or I want to know about this affair, what's really going on with Marilyn Maxwell, are you going to, is it going to be with Rock Hudson or are you going to marry Bob Hope? Those kind of things. So Luella's involvement in everyone's lives, I thought was kind of odd, but made sense for the time. And yeah, just really Gable not, kind of wanting to be a father, but it just never panned out in anything significant.
Well, I have a friend who does channeling,
Mhm.
and we occasionally make a video together when a person of interest pops up. Quite often it's true crime, because why not? We've
Yeah,
solved many cases. I
I
mean, I
love
have to
true
tell
crime.
you, yeah. But we did a couple of the stars in your book. We're going to do more. I haven't put them up yet. I was,
Oh, okay.
waiting
Yeah, I
for
haven't.
this conversation.
Yeah.
And that was the question. One of the questions I asked Clark Gable was, why didn't you connect with your children? And, what was that all about? The impression that I got was he was very much a function of gendered
Mhm.
expectations during his time and pragmatism because it would not have been a good look for his career.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I mean, we kind of recall Judy meeting him as a young, maybe
Teenager,
about
yeah.
14 or so.
Yeah.
And he was kind and gracious and seemed genuinely interested in her. And it was almost like, I've met her, I've acknowledged her. She's a nice gal. And then, yeah, to come back to your question, and then wasn't it Keys to the City? I think in 51 that Gable and Loretta Young made together.
Oh, that, yeah.
Could you
No, well, they made
imagine?
we're not talking about when she got pregnant.
No,
No.
that was in the late 30s. I mean,
Yeah.
to have had this child, all that rigmarole of Loretta passing her off as adopted, and then years later them coming together to make another film as if they weren't kind of this family unit. It's
I thought
one thing
that was
to go
really
on.
weird too. I'm
Yeah,
glad you brought that up.
because that I believe was the timing on why Gable was over to the Young residence. It was during the filming of that.
It just seemed a disconnect emotionally
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I think reflects not only the context, the time period, but I think a lot of these people, well, this is overstating the obvious. They're narcissists. Everything wraps around themselves.
I mean, I certainly felt that way with Loretta Young. I mean, I know I went as far as to call her like a clinical narcissist, but can you imagine putting braces on your child's baby teeth, getting the ears pinned back, being so obsessed with, you know, that
Hiding the
whole
truth.
that whole
Yeah.
story. I don't even think her husband, when she remarried the Lewis guy, even knew about it. That was my impression, that he was
Well,
not.
you mentioned that he was really emotionally distant from Judy and
Yeah,
she had a loveless childhood. Did you read her book?
I did. Uncommon Knowledge. It's still
It's
on my
good.
bookshelf. It's one of my all-time favorites. And I have to say, Helen, one of the things that struck me about Judy, she seems so normal. She went on to become I think a psychoanalyst,
Yes, she did.
and just, not vindictive. It wasn't like a mommy dearest vibe. It was honest. It was raw, and she seemed to have really made her life her own. There wasn't
Yeah.
walling. She seemed very well adjusted. I mean, if you can be well adjusted as a child of Hollywood, right? But
Well, of course, because she was a psychotherapist.
yeah,
In
like
order to get those licenses,
you,
you have to go through extensive personal psychotherapy as a student. You
yeah,
don't just go to psychiatric school or therapy school and just take a few classes and you're good to go.
yeah,
They put you through all kinds of psychotherapy and evaluation. They don't want unstable people harming other people who have problems. You're right. She had really come to peace with it. Part of her process, quite obviously, was the publishing of that book. And it's very telling, Loretta's response.
yes. It was a very cutting her off, and this was kind of towards the end of Loretta's life anyway. And I did read Loretta's, I guess you'd say, memoir, Forever Young, initially, and that came out posthumously, and that was when Loretta had said, "I will say that Judy is my own daughter." So she seemed comfortable with that for her own book, but then when Judy's book first came out, it was, "I'm done," not. I believe it was kind of a severing.
Right. Which two thoughts on that. I've seen that play out closer to my life. Strongly professed, especially Catholics,
Oh, yeah.
who respond to something that they don't like, that's a personal dynamic, with that "don't ever darken my door again." I've seen that play out. That's kind of a predictable, one of a set of predictable reactions. And then the other thing I think of when I think about Loretta making public, yeah, she was my daughter, I kind of equate it with the founding fathers who owned slaves, who freed them when they died. You know, there's an element of self-protection there that is not a good look, I don't think. But there's no denying the relationship. Man, those genetics, oh my God.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah,
as a,
especially as she got older. I mean, I feel like in some of the baby pictures, she looks a little bit more like Loretta, but just really she grew into kind of, that heavier brow, right?
yeah, yeah.
Facial. Yeah. And of course she called her book Uncommon Knowledge because it was very much circulated amongst her friends, who were the offspring of directors, producers, actors, who kind of openly whispered about this. And then she herself, I think on the verge of her wedding, had a conversation with her soon to be husband, and he knew about it already.
Oh, he did. It was no secret. That's
He was
great.
like, oh, okay, well, I guess to hear it out loud, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you see there are some pictures on the internet of, and I believe they're from the book, where she's the center, and then each of her parents, their profiles, their pictures
Yeah,
are juxtaposed to her right and left, and it's you're hard pressed to decide which one she looks more like. Very strong.
a definite blend.
Okay, hang on here. I don't know. Clark Gable. When we did our little channeling thing, the thing that struck me right away about him was that he was actually quite intelligent and had it in his contract, you can't photograph me with a book. He didn't want to be shown holding a book. It would kind of erode his He-Man image. Oh,
Right.
come on.
I love Kim. Yeah.
Well, that's my problem with this time period. Actually, I should be more specific because he acted for a long time, but especially in the 50s and the 60s, early 60s, there was such a strongly defined set of expectations for gender behavior. And I think it's coming out of World War II. It was something of a response to that. And so the movies before that, there was more leeway. And then after that, it became so rigid. And, just like the women's corsets and girdles, everything got tightened up. And I just find it disturbing that somebody who's intelligent would have those values. I don't want to be seen with a book, just weird to me. And we know he really valued marriage. How interesting is it to you that he kind of picked a stepmother substitute every time he got married?
It seemed like that was the case, and then Carol seemed the exception.
Yeah.
Certainly seemed like kind of hitching a star to who could help him with his acting, his appearance, his clothing. More of a kind of sugar mama vibe in some cases. And
yes, a lot. And I think he didn't make any bones about it.
No, I don't think. I mean, I think one thing you could almost admire with Gable is he did kind of an air of some confidence of I'm just me and take it as it is, and kind of
I act pragmatically, and I don't pretend to be anything else. And except that I don't want people to know I'm literate.
What you see,
or that I have children.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Let me go through. I've got things marked down here.
Sure.
We've talked about all this stuff already. I thought it was interesting he made 8 movies with Joan Crawford.
Well, and depending on what you read, I think they did have a relationship, a very long term.
Yeah.
Gosh, maybe a friends with benefits. Is that what people would call it?
Well, there was such a double standard in general in society. People then were no different than people are now. They just had to hide a lot of stuff. So it doesn't surprise me a bit. But I will tell you that one of my daughter's favorite things to say to me when they're giving me a hard time is no more wire hangers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that movie and book just really tarnished her image so much.
Well, that was a therapeutic move on the part of her daughter, I think. It was, painful to read. Okay. A name that keeps popping up that I hadn't thought about asking you about, but it just popped up again. Adela Rogers St. John.
Mm-hmm.
The rumor that she had a child with him. She pops up a lot. Now, her father was a newspaper guy. Is that correct? Or
yes, and she's a writer as well.
Right.
Remember with Harlow husband suicide. Sorry, can we say that word? You know what I mean. The Paul Byrne thing. Yeah. So she certainly
self-harm. I'm on thin ice here all the time. It's ridiculous, but okay.
So yes, I know you're talking about with Gable, and then she was told a story by Jean, right, when that all happened. So yes, a writer. I can't say I'm as well versed in her, but yet with her, but she does seem to pop up as wanting that scoop, right?
So was she like a gossip columnist?
I mean, that's the impression I have.
Yeah.
I think magazine work as well.
Okay. So
Certainly
maybe not the
Hollywood.
same genre
Yeah.
as Willa Parsons and Hedda Hopper, who were more, Entertainment Tonight types, right? She was
Well,
maybe.
yeah, I mean, and again, I don't want to speak ill of her and not be an expert, but I felt like with the Jean Harlow chapter and the whole thing with her husband, Paul Byrne, that just seems so orchestrated. Yeah, I think Adela was wanting to go along with whatever the studio had fed her as what's going to be the official story,
Well, it's
and kind of
interesting.
sensationalize it too.
Well, it's interesting how many people were afraid of the studios and afraid for their careers in relationship to the studios, and not just actors. And I think writers, that's another example. People were afraid to speak ill because they'd lose access.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that with Luella, that
Okay, I've got this underlined. You've already mentioned it. Loretta had an undiagnosed narcissistic personality disorder. The whole story of Saratoga, we'll get into that, but Clark Gable was the one who was making the movie with her when she collapsed and got ill and died. In a strange way. I mean, I know it's not the same, but it brought to mind the story of Virginia Rappe, who died at that party. Roscoe
Oh,
Arbuckle.
sure.
I know that it's really not the same, but it kind of brought that to mind. This is sudden death and all the questions around it. Let's see here. That plane crash, the death of Carol Lombard, and then him going into the Army Air Force. That was remarkable to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost it almost strikes me as kind of some penance, of like, I want to atone for, because he was going to go on that trip, right?
Yeah, and she took it for him because he didn't
Yeah,
like
yeah,
he didn't like to talk to crowds, right?
yeah. So I mean, again, that penance comes to mind of, I want to do something. She gave her life. Why can't I get involved? And this is the way I'm going to pursue my role in the world.
I took it farther than that. I consider it a death wish. I think he just lost the will to live. So what the hell? There was a great environment of patriotic service, sure. People throwing themselves into this war. And I think it was a convenient way for him to just kind of create the opportunity to be gone without actually doing it himself, if you know what I'm implying. Yeah. So he, tragically, really, at the end of that movie with Marilyn Monroe, had that heart attack. And I thought it was kind of weird that, I mean, not unusual, not unheard of, but tragic that he actually initially kind of recovered from it, but went on to die, almost 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
So it had done more damage than I think they realized. Very sad. And I think it ties in with the Marilyn book, which we should mention. I said I was going to mention it. Where did I put it? Sarah's father wrote the book, The Real Marilyn Monroe, and he'll be back. We're going to dig into the big mystery about her next time we talk. But in this movie that Gable made, The Misfits, with Marilyn Monroe, after he died, Marilyn actually reached out to his wife, and wasn't she at the son's baptism several months later? And I just thought it was nice. She became sort of an auntie or a godmother or something.
Well, yeah, that certainly seemed to be Marilyn's way, to be very others oriented and considerate, and how can she help?
And she really liked Clark Gable. They got along, right? He came to her defense, I think, if I remember correctly. I get my famous old movie stars confused sometimes. A lot of the stories, they're always in battle with the studios,
I mean, I think there'd really been some hero worship of Gable as a child. and then to get to work with him
That's
as an
right.
adult.
Yeah, didn't she used to kiss his picture goodnight every night when she was a little girl?
Like, there was always that quest for the father figure or protector, or if you
It's
will.
really sad. Looking for salvation in Hollywood. Right? Very sad. Okay, let's move on to Carol Lombard. What a juxtaposition. You know, here she is. She's described herself as a blue collar person. So tell me what you discovered about her that you were surprised to find out.
Well, I mean, I think Carol was, she had this really beautiful, glamorous image, but really had kind of that common touch. She could connect with just the everyday person. Preferred the company really of the workers on a set to the other stars of the film. And I think she just seems like such a fun person to know. Like if you met her at a party, or like she'd kind of be a friend for life type of person.
I'll be honest with you. I was reading about your descriptions of her that came from somebody else. You were repeating a
Oh,
description, and I remember the movies I've seen her in, and my mind went to, did she have a little touch of bipolar disorder? She seemed enormously manic, and then she would withdraw. And I just, because I left my psychiatric license in the other room, but my diagnosis, I just had this funny feeling, that she was a
yeah,
little on the edge there,
yeah,
which played into her what they call madcap comedies.
sure. And I don't know if I could say that for certain. I certainly see what you're
What I'm
noting.
getting at, yeah.
Yet I feel like there's a lot of stability in her life. She had a very good
Yeah.
relationship with her mother. When things with William Powell ended, it was very amicable. Um, I don't know.
William Powell, that's another one. I love William Powell. Weren't they in My Man Godfrey?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
and
great.
that's always been a classic.
Yeah, it's a great movie. So I think it's a great little commentary and insight into the Depression, because it was aspirational, it was escapist for most people,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it revealed a lot to us about how tough those times were. And William Powell, he was able to be entertaining and debonair and very dignified, but at the same time, there was that pathos. He seemed, there was a strain of sadness in him. He was very good at that. I just
Yeah,
love him.
I agree. And he outlived so many people when you think about, Harlow dying young and Lombard. And because he was quite an old man when he died. And I think there had been a cancer scare in the 30s.
Well, he had a
Right.
colonoscopy,
Yeah.
not oscopy,
Yeah.
colostomy.
Yeah. And still, I think it was in the late 80s when he passed away. There's just like all the loss he would have seen, dating these younger women, I mean, that he ended up outliving.
Which
So,
is, and having that sort of health challenge in those days, that was almost experimental surgery. It was unusual. It wasn't all that common nowadays. It's not nothing, but it's certainly far advanced. For a time period when he had it, it would have been a challenge.
mhm.
And then for him to survive that and to go on all those decades later, it is remarkable, really remarkable. It's like the star who pretty much lives on cigarettes and alcohol and lives to be 90, and you see a lot of
Yeah.
that. It's so interesting. So Carol Lombard, here's the thing that you told me about in the book about Carol Lombard that actually caused me to go on and do some research and make another video.
Oh, yeah.
She was a Baha'i, which I don't think that's the correct term, but she was a member of the Baha'i faith.
Yeah, I'm not sure myself how to say
I know. A Baha'i or something. I don't know. I'm
a lot of
ignorant.
yeah.
Yeah. But she was a practitioner of the Baha'i faith. And I thought that was so interesting. And it was generational. Her mother, she was raised that way. It wasn't something she adopted because it was fancy or a fad or something.
Yeah.
and they're very interesting. It comes from Iran, from ancient Persia. Well, not that ancient, but it is derived from Islam in Iran, but it's not considered an Islamic sect. It's considered something entirely different. And it's so interesting. And, you could see where she did live her beliefs, except for the sex. They're not into that. But her kindness to people, her generosity, it's very reflected. And then when they got on that airplane, her mother was freaking out because the numerology was bad. Well, that's where that comes from, their religion.
Yeah, I mean, just that number 3 following her so much in life and into death, really.
So weird. And the fact that her mother put that much importance in it, and then that they tossed a coin. Ay, ay, ay. You could hold a loaded weapon to my head. I would not get on any airplane that I didn't feel like I should get on. I don't care what. You could toss all the coins in the Fort Knox Mint, and I would not.
I mean, that pressure from Carol.
Because I love why.
Well, I mean, I think the concern was Gable was making a movie with your least favorite actress.
Well, not necessarily my least, but she's towards the bottom third.
Anytime I've seen her, I've enjoyed her performance, but her personal life, that could be another video, right? But
it's more, this is so shallow of me, but it's more the gender norms that she exemplifies, the hair. And there was just something about her that evokes for me a time period that I found really problematic.
Yeah.
And a lot of the movies she was in, she played that out, and I just wasn't into it. Okay, so Carol Lombard, what else can you tell me? The fact that she was a Max Sennett bathing beauty.
Yeah.
Just cracked me up. So we asked her, we did her as well on our,
okay.
And we asked her, I was dying to know, after Roscoe Arbuckle knew Max Sennett well. He was a Keystone Cop for a while, and he was in the studios. That's where he got his start. And he knew Max Sennett really, really well. And his description of him is not the most flattering thing in the world. And so I asked, what did you think of Max Sennett? And she said something to the effect of, well, he was a weird one. She kept her distance from him. She did not really like the vibe. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you always have to wonder what kind of types of men are drawn to industries of kind of female objectification, right? I mean, of the.
Well, it was ubiquitous in those days,
could it be predatory? I mean, what kind of people are drawn into the fields where the woman's body is the commodity? I mean, I think you have to ask that a little bit too.
Well, the description of how he ran his studio, he was unkempt, he was dirty, not just untidy, but like never bathed, and his hair was never combed, and he didn't brush his teeth, and he chain smoked cigars, and he had a spittoon, and in the early Keystone Studios, and he was this ruthless observer of people and user of people in his films. He had an office at the second or third story of a wooden structure in the center of the studio lot, and he had this view where he could spy on everybody. He made it quite clear, that's what I'm doing, I want them to always know that they're under observation. Really kind of creepy. And he had this long-term relationship with Mabel Normand.
Oh, okay.
And you know what happened to her? She found somebody that was it him? I can't remember. It's been so long since I read it. But she caught a couple that she was, emotionally attached to, in the middle of what. And a fight broke out between her and the woman threw something at her and hit her in the head and put her in a coma for like a couple of weeks. And when she came out of the coma, she was never the same, and she had a closed head injury, and she went back to acting, but she was
Sure.
not right. It was really very sad. Anyway, we're getting off the subject here.
That's okay.
Oh, I was really taken by her relationship, Carol Lombard's relationship with Billy Haynes.
Yeah, I feel like Joan Crawford also used his services too. I remember reading, through time that, and I really applaud that of these women who could have had anyone
Mhm.
decorate their home and have it not have any ounce of controversy, and they still picked someone who was very openly gay and had kind of shunned the studio system and said, "This is who I want to patron." I mean, I think it speaks well of that character.
It speaks well of their character, and I think it says something about him as a person.
Oh yeah,
And when you read his attitude, it was Louis B. Mayer, and he just told him, "I'm not making that choice. I quit," basically. And then he was with his partner for 50 years.
yeah,
Just something that talks something about the substance of all the people involved. He became known as the decorator to the stars.
yeah.
Yeah, I just
Yeah, and then I think it took off. But probably took a few choice patrons to kind of get the ball rolling of, see, yeah, he did my house, and then it would probably catch on from there. But you had to be one of the first to sign up and give him that opportunity.
And how interesting that Kay, when she moved in with Clark Gable, commented on what great taste
Yeah.
Carol Lombard had. I'm not changing anything. Well, that was his work.
Yeah. Well, and I think Kay had to have known that Carol was the love of his life, that this was their relationship. I'm not an expert, but maybe fun, companionable, but Carol was at the top. So
Yeah, it didn't have the depth.
could see her just not taking it personally, that this is her stuff and I live here now and no need
Which
to
is
change.
remarkably mature, remarkably evolved. And I don't think there are a lot of people that would be that self-confident. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Who am I looking at here whose mother had a heart attack?
I'm not sure. This book came out in 2019, so I've been scared that you'll ask me something I don't remember. They were magazine articles, so they were written over a period of time. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Oh, I know it. That the whole controversy, mystery around the guy whose house Rosemary Clooney bought.
Oh,
And
Russ Columbo.
yeah, and it was supposedly haunted by his ghost.
Well, Helen, the whole story about the lighting the match with the gun. Did that seem odd to you? I mean, did you feel like that was a cover story for what really could have happened, or
Just a little,
right?
But I'm suspicious.
We are suspicious. You and me, we are suspicious people going in. But I feel like a lot of people today don't remember Russ Columbo. He certainly was not.
No, I didn't. No.
But I had the impression so talented, so handsome, could have been the next Bing Crosby. Were there powers to be that didn't want to see that competition come in? I mean, I think you have to wonder, was there something to his death beyond just a really freak accident? I'll leave that there, but I don't know, right?
Yeah.
I think you have to, especially with the lighting the match angle. It's one thing to say I was cleaning a gun or I was showing someone the gun or it went off, but I'm just going to take out a cigarette and just say I'm just going to light the match and see what happens.
That makes a lot of sense, though.
I just don't think that's your first. Is that a first instinct, or even maybe your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth choice for how to light it?
What about the sole of your shoe? They always did that in movies. It seemed to work every time. I never understood that.
Yeah,
what were their shoes made of?
I don't know. Maybe it was an accident. I think there's so many mysteries in Carol's life, right? You had to wonder.
Well, it kind of reminds me of another great mystery, supposedly. And I hate to go back to the same old song, but Lana Turner's.
Oh no, not Lana.
And,
Oh well, yeah. I know there's kind of a newish book on that too. I have not read yet. That feels very confident that Lana had been the shooter. For Stompanato.
You think?
And took the daughter, being a minor.
And you know why? You know why it happened. is my opinion. This
Yeah.
is allegedly. She walked in on him with the daughter. I think there was an ongoing inappropriate
Well,
and
and we know there was with one of Lana's husbands, was inappropriate with Cheryl. I read Cheryl's memoir.
so
Ooh,
did she
forget his
she
name.
didn't talk about the
Lex Barker.
cheating. Yeah, and
Lex
those.
Barker had been molested, her. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we know there was a history of her mother having men in the light. He was a Tarzan actor. She wrote very openly about abuse at his hands. So yeah, it makes you wonder. Makes you
Did Cheryl in her book, her memoir, did she talk about that incident, the final incident there that she went to court for?
Yes, yes, I believe, and take it as you will, I believe she calls it the paragraph or something, like, this is what's always in our bios. Like, when I have to talk about, her mother would jokingly call that incident the paragraph,
Oh,
or I guess you could say a footnote too, maybe, of you can't tell our life stories without that Easter weekend. I forget, was it 58, 59, something like
I
that.
don't know. I was a little.
I mean, almost trivializing it, like, oh, we always get asked, like, how much emphasis is put on that compared to their other accomplishments, maybe, was their lamenting.
Kind of reminds me of somebody else. She's just not my type. Okay. I was immediately taken that the story was fabricated and it was meant to put the onus on somebody who really would not be held terribly responsible, and that the whole thing was a cover up,
Yeah.
not only for the act itself but what precipitated it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly possible. I mean, kind of the whole he walked into the knife thing. I just don't know how. I mean, because I love forensics and ballistics, pathology, all that stuff.
Oh.
Blood spatter. I could go on forever. I love
Oh
that stuff.
yeah.
But I mean, unless someone was really running. I mean, could there be enough force to? I had the impression he just walked out of her bedroom, turned, and Cheryl was there with a knife. Like, would that really cause that kind of?
I don't know enough about it, but I hear what you're saying, and the whole thing
Force?
stank to high heaven. The explanation, and you're right. If it had happened today with modern forensics, I bet the outcome would have been very different.
Yeah.
Very different.
Mhm.
Having said that, do we care?
I mean, what?
Given what he was,
Yeah.
I know that's terrible. I take that back. But not really. Let's see here. I want to hit the high points. Okay. She was told that she had some weird condition where she couldn't have children. Do you know what that weird condition was? I was just curious.
Yeah, I do recall what you're saying about kind of some excessive bleeding.
Probably endometriosis.
I would think that'd be possible, or trying to think of gynecology in the 30s. What how evolved that was. Were these polyps? Were these cysts? I mean, is this something that endoscopically could have been treated today? I always tend to wonder how infertile people were, and like if there is something today could have been
Well,
hormonal.
a lot of times women were told that they couldn't have
Yeah,
children
yeah.
when that really wasn't true at all. Even into modern times. Listen, I worked in a hospital when I was in high school. And one of the things that I did, because, I was nobody, it was a summer job. I schlepped things around, dropped off messages,
Mm,
and took specimens from the operating room to the laboratory, because anything they cut out of you, they have to have a
sure.
pathologist look at. And they did inordinate numbers of hysterectomies on really young women. I knew somebody who was 25 and had a hysterectomy. And you have to wonder today.
If
But we're not practicing medicine, YouTube.
we're
We don't know, right? So very sad. And to Carol Lombard, far too young and it really was a tragedy, not only for her immediate family, but I think, she might have gone on to do remarkable things in Hollywood. She was,
Well, and you remember, I hate to have to review, but that interview she gave about they're going to promote it as my farewell performance, and just so prophetic.
they had to change a couple of lines in the movie because she talked about sort of harbingers of death, and yeah, and they changed. Yeah, there was something going on there. So then let's talk about Jean Harlow, the Kansas City bombshell. Did you make that up, or was
I
that
did because I was playing on the Kansas City Bomber.
That's very good. I liked
I
it.
love funny things.
I do too. I love puns. There's nothing better than a pun.
Yeah.
The lowest form of humor. I'm right there with you. I love them.
I mean, I thought it was clever and kind of said what we're going to talk about. So the title.
My personal opinion about people who denigrate puns is that they're just not smart enough to get it.
They're not witty enough.
Thank you. And did you know that Scientific American, or maybe it was Psychology Today, did this big study? This is years ago. Sense of humor and IQ are directly proportional. So, it's because if you don't have a sense of humor, it's likely that you're not getting the humor in the situation, and that is directly proportional to intelligence. But it's also, not to sound like a huge snob, IQ is related to your ability to learn, not how smart you are.
Nice. I like
so
that.
It's important to know that. Anyway, we're going to talk about Jean Harlow, and one of the first things she talked about is that the love of her life was William Powell.
He pops up again. Yeah.
Doesn't that say something about her? She is very much, in my mind, like Marilyn Monroe, in the sense that she was put in this little cubbyhole of not being smart, being a sex symbol, being, a kind of an object of derision, sort of gender derision. And she was actually very smart and really kind, and not at all what they created her to be.
Yeah.
So William Powell, who was quite obviously erudite, quite obviously educated, yes, he would find somebody like that attractive. On the face of it, you wonder, whoa, that's an odd couple, but not really.
Yeah, when you think about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she died suddenly, and was that the mystery around that, the thing that struck you about her story, or was there something else?
Well, I mean, I think the kidney failure, I don't know if today dialysis could have stepped in to help her, of that tragedy. But I did feel like the marriage to Paul Byrne, I mean, to me, that was the juicy aspect, right? I mean, this man she's married to, but he might have a common law wife who just getting out of a mental hospital, no big deal, kind of wants to get back up with him, and
intimations that maybe he was dysfunctional sexually, and
yes, and then that's the story of why he killed himself that the studio thought would be the most.
But there's a mystery there. Yeah. Did he?
I mean, I just thought Dorothy Millay was involved in some. I mean, she comes to visit him. There's a fight. The hired staff overhear a confrontation, and then she dies. So suddenly, herself off of the boat,
cleaning up the eyewitnesses. It's just
so
weird.
And the fixer, Howard Strickland and
Eddie, what's his name? Mannix.
Yeah. And same, back with Lana about you called MGM first. You didn't, and then the police second. MGM.
Well, that's what happened with Marilyn when she died. They called the studio first before they called the police. The police got there, and it was crawling.
You have to determine what the truth is going to be before you can.
Everybody has to get their script, to get their story in straight, before they involve law enforcement. So I thought, she was at Jean Harlow when she was 14. She had scarlet fever.
Yeah.
What do you think? You think the repercussions of that?
Yes, because I know there were thoughts about the hair dye, thoughts about severe sunburn, things like that were thrown out there. That's why you'd have renal failure in your late 20s kind of thing.
No, my gut feeling, and once again, I'm not an MD. This is just me speculating about dead movie stars. Um, Oftentimes in the past, when people would become invalids after an illness, it was like, harboring an infection or the damage of an infection, uh,
Hmm.
things like, oh, I don't know, measles and scarlet fever.
Or
I had
rheumatic
scarlet
fever.
fever. They would rheumatic fever cause heart damage.
Yes, I mean, you know of people who went on to have those
Yes.
lifelong impacts.
Probably fewer today because of, treatment.
Sure.
But in my day, I knew people who had repercussions from childhood illnesses. Is really very frightening. People were afraid. You don't remember polio. Oh my God.
No,
That
I
was
mean,
something else.
I don't, but my parents would have lived
Mhm.
with that fear, knowing people who
I
contract.
remember my mother. I remember walking down the street with my mother. I was probably 3, maybe 4. And I grew up in this beautiful sort of beach resort town, and one of the things that they had right on the shore was what they called a plunge, and it was basically a large shallow cement pool, like a wading pool, with a fountain in the middle that kids could stand under. It was beautiful, and my mother would never let me get in that. She was a nurse, and
Mm,
I'd say, "Oh, I want to go to the plunge." And she'd say, "No, no, you'll get polio." And you couldn't go to the theater. They were afraid of, uh, I suppose, enclosed spaces.
mhm, mhm.
So let's see about Jean Harlow. The fact that she had this image and she was such an innocent, and she'd never had a boyfriend.
Yes, I'm almost a little emotionally stunted, maybe.
Oh, do you think when they
Well,
called her baby?
and even after, not to keep coming back to Paul, but we didn't. They were afraid of her testifying, getting involved, talking to the police. Like just very sheltered, and doing the sleepovers with her mother, and
It was very weird.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And actually, she was so well educated, though. She went to
yeah.
good schools, but at the same time, she was so innocent of
Mhm.
the
It's
larger world.
yeah.
And then I thought it was funny that she described her first husband that she divorced as profane.
Well,
I
you had to give a reason for
I know.
you know.
Yeah. So, Howard Hughes. Tell me what you think about Howard Hughes.
Well, yeah, I mean, he comes up in a few stories. Jane Russell certainly, and Jean Harlow, I guess, particularly those two in the book. I feel for him on the mental illness. Obsessive compulsive disorder is something, without going into a lot of detail, is within my family tree, and I know how difficult it is. It's not humorous. It's not the butt of jokes. It's not just about the hand washing. It's such a
Oh no.
complex disease and so much more than the cliches. So I think I always come in a little bit with the pumping the brakes on that because I know what a debilitating disease that can be. His personality, personal life aside, you can make what you will of that, but just knowing that the OCD was there, I really feel for him. I've seen it up close.
Yeah, I separate the two because I think his personality, when he was younger, it didn't have the grip on him that it had as he got
Sure,
older. And
sure.
he was very controlled, which probably was the OCD, but very
Yeah,
controlling of the people that he dealt with,
difficult.
micromanaging everything. Certainly that was an
Sure,
early sign.
sure.
But you know how he ended his days? He became a prisoner of dishonorable caretakers, and it was really and truly disturbing. um but it was interesting that he was such a Lothario, he was such a ladies man at the same time. It just seems, you have to wonder, because I would not want to date somebody that was that controlling and
Mhm.
obsessive, which was early on. So you have to wonder how pragmatic they were being associating with him. Yeah.
Money,
Just,
fame, connections. Yeah.
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 And then the whole, oh, I just happened to crash my plane, but yeah. Look at me, I'm fine. Have you ever seen the big plane he made, the Spruce Goose?
Oh, I don't know if I have.
My husband is into like trains and planes and stuff, you know, boys. Um, so I got dragged to these different museums, and one is in Long Beach near the Queen Mary. There's a gigantic hangar, and there's this airplane that Howard Hughes built that's entirely made of wood, and it was the biggest plane in the world. I mean, it's hard to pay it service with words because it's so enormous, and they actually did get it to fly, but now it's just this oddity in
Yeah.
an air museum. But he was intelligent in a weird, quirky kind of way.
Yeah.
The whole Jane Russell Braw thing, we'll have to get to that.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay, so they compared Jean Harlow to Clara Bow. I didn't see that. Did you see
Yeah,
that?
I think it was kind of like the whole it girl thing. Like
Yeah.
maybe then a physical resemblance. Maybe more of the
Yeah.
new hot thing kind of thing.
Yeah. You know who I really like, and she was like probably the original It Girl. There was a movie called The It Girl, and Colleen Moore was in it. It was a comedy. But there was an actress in silent films who was the original Flappers, Olive Thomas. Do you know about her?
I will say I don't know as much with the silent era, but it's still very interesting.
She was kind of, you know, going into the talkies, but she didn't live long enough. She haunts the New Amsterdam Theater on Broadway. She really does. I mean, this is not me just being, you know, woo. Person after person after person has reported over the decades. Like, for example, they hired some guy to be like a night watchman or a janitor or something, and he was there alone at night. And they told him, "You're all locked in. It's all fine. You shouldn't have any problems at all because there's nobody going to be here. Nobody's going to bother you." So he just went about his business, and he sees a woman walking through the main part of the theater with the chairs, you know, and the stage and stuff. He sees her on the other side across the rows of chairs walking up the side aisle, and she saw him and she waved and smiled, and she went up the stairs and back onto the stage and behind the backstage. And he thought, well, that's funny. I thought they told me there was going to be nobody here. So the next day when people showed up in the morning, they said, "How did it go?" And he goes, "Well, it was fine, but you know, I thought you told me there was going to be nobody here." And he described this woman, and the guy laughed at him and he said, "Oh, you've met Olive." And this happens over and over. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I'm open to that.
Okay, what jumps out to you that was significant other than her ill health and her odd relationship with her mother, and then the crisis with her husband, which is so strange.
Yeah.
It deserves a book of its own, I think.
Yeah.
The death of that supposed first wife or common law wife. I don't see really anything else that jumps out at me.
Well, you know, her dream to get Today Is Tonight published. You know, her dream of being a novelist.
That's right. Yeah, she was working for so long on it. Was like 4 or 5 years working on that book.
Yeah, you know, I think that's interesting, and of course, kind of that whole vamp image she was wanting to maybe not run away from, but just to have the public understand that this is a character in the film, and I'm at home gardening and reading magazines.
Right. Evolve from it. Well, the same with Carol Lombard. I mean, her favorite thing to do was hang out at home.
Yeah.
And she wasn't a party girl. Yeah.
Fighting back against that.
Anyway, Oh, okay. So William Powell defended her after she was dead. The agent, I guess, wrote a book about her and it wasn't very flattering.
Yeah, there was some.
And William Powell rose to her defense and said that's not who she was at all. I thought that was, that was chivalrous of him. He didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
So then we come to Spencer Tracy. I thought A Life on the Rocks. Good one, Sarah.
Which one?
Talk about a sad life.
It was, and I know what you're saying with kind of the gendered movies, especially with Katharine Hepburn, but I feel like why I like Spencer Tracy, he just has such kind of that everyman. I mean, he could take on any role, and really
Wow.
immersive.
Gifted actor.
Very, very gifted. And I think a lot of that insecurity, a lot of self-doubt, and I think what I try to do in that part of the book is show that his wife Louise, give her a little bit of some dimension.
Mhm.
She wasn't sitting at home waiting for him. She started that foundation for deaf children. She was very accomplished. I think even did some writing of her own. Had a life outside of Spencer Tracy's fame.
Well, didn't she raise horses?
Yeah, horses. I was just going to say horses too. And because I think a lot of times she kind of gets thrown under the bus of why he couldn't marry Katharine Hepburn. And I felt like that was kind of unfair and lacking in a little nuance too.
Just my gut feeling after reading this chapter was this is very interesting. And how different would this story have been were they alive today? And the hints, the very carefully veiled hints that perhaps there was more going on with both of their sexualities. His relationship with Pat O'Brien.
Sure.
I just think there was so much more, like you said, nuance to his life story.
Yeah.
And I think he spent his life denying who he really was. I think that's what was going on with him. It's very interesting. And you're right about his wife. She is single-handedly responsible for the John Tracy Clinic at UCLA. And it is world famous. I mean, it's a big deal. And she just started it all on her own, just a mother who cared about her son. And then what happened to that kid? Oh.
Yeah, just kind of those, I think, I believe he has since passed, but
Yes.
Eventual blindness with the deafness too.
Yeah, just poor thing, just hard knock life, right? But Spencer Tracy, I don't think anybody could ever deny that he wasn't a subtle, nuanced, talented, versatile actor. He certainly was. Although Old Man in the Sea, terrible book, terrible movie. Sorry. I have no opinions. It did not appeal. And didn't Hemingway hate the movie too?
I believe so.
Yeah. Please don't tell me it's your favorite movie.
No.
Okay, good.
It's okay. No.
Now that I've trashed it.
Yeah. What can I say? No.
I thought David Niven was funny in this story called Spencer Tracy the Pope.
I love David Niven.
Yeah. He was witty. Very funny. Who reminds me of him a little bit is Melvyn Douglas.
Oh. Okay.
They're very similar. They're kind of similar in appearance and stature, and they're similar in Melvyn Douglas and Cary Grant in Mr. Blanding Buys His Dream House. Oh my God.
It's been a while since I've seen that one. I'll have to go back.
I've forgotten that's one of my favorite movies. I have a growing list apparently of famous movies. It's hard to distinguish. They're so wonderful. Melvyn Douglas is great granddaughter. Ileana Douglas, the actress.
Oh, okay.
She's dark-haired. She has a lot of character parts.
Okay.
I haven't seen her in a while because she's over 30, so as a woman, Yeah. But she was his, I think, his granddaughter. Okay. I like this description. I didn't like the reality of it, but you said that he was submerged in a bottle.
Yeah.
And then this relationship with Katharine Hepburn, I always thought it was kind of performative, to use that word. I I didn't entirely buy what they were characterized as
Mhm.
being to each other. And I think you reveal that.
Yes, I mean, almost more of a caretaking role on Catherine's part, kind of a keeper a little bit.
You've heard the expression lavender marriage,
Sure, sure.
and I almost felt like it was a lavender relationship, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly know there are rumors about Katharine Hepburn, those aren't new. Um, I don't know. I think there was a real affinity between the two, whether it was a
Yeah.
romantic thing or not. I think they were kind of each other's person and couldn't.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that you can look at all of the potential aspects of it, and they're not mutually exclusive. I think they had a deep emotional attachment. I think they probably had a sexual relationship, you know, but I also think that there was more going on there, and the relationship was in a lot of ways useful. I don't mean that they used each other, but it did serve a bigger purpose because it was not a smoke screen. I don't know if I have the right term.
I hear you.
Yeah, like a
Yeah,
cover.
yet the relationship was a little bit undercover too, with him married. It wasn't. When I think of a lavender marriage, I think of it being very public and in your face, like, "Hey, we're married," and kind of have
Well, correct,
a little
correct. But
covert.
in this, yeah, correct. But
No.
in the same sense that the purpose of a lavender marriage, their relationship for each other, people could look at them and say, oh, they're having an extramarital affair, and leave off the other layer of like what might really
Yeah.
be going on at the core of it.
Yes.
And all of it is entirely possible at the same time. I don't dismiss the value of each other and their relationship,
Mhm.
but there was more to it. And how sad is that? Because who cares, right? I mean, in those days they did, but it's sad that their whole lives were constrained by these norms that
Mhm.
are meaningless. I thought it was his wife had a very enlightened attitude about it. You
Mhm.
know, it was the best kept secret, right? The worst kept secret in Hollywood. Isn't that what they called it?
Well, I don't know. Did Louise really not know? I mean, she claimed to have thought it remember a rumor was how she described
Oh, please.
things.
See, I don't believe any of this stuff. Come on,
I
you
mean, it's
know.
more of like a dig than thinking really like trivializing her, maybe more than
Uh-huh. Yeah.
believing
Yeah.
it.
Dismissing her is
Yes.
unimportant. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I could see that.
So just quickly to go back to his origins, I love his middle name, Bonaventure.
Bonaventure.
I
Kind of
know,
a Catholic vibe. Yeah.
it just cracked me up. What saint was that? Um, Interesting family upbringing, and Bill O'Brien. I think that was a very intriguing relationship that he had.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, Spencer Tracy, he was such a talented actor, but I think he would have made a great professor.
Mhm.
You know, I just think he has that
Yeah.
energy around him. He got the role George M. Cohan, and George M. Cohan became his mentor. Are you into George M. Cohan at all? If you like musicals, you might like him.
Oh, yeah, a little bit, sure. A little
One
bit.
of my favorite scenes from any movie in the whole wide world is James Cagney doing the dance, Yankee Doodle
Oh, sure.
Dandy, which is, take it or leave it until you actually see the real video, the real film of George M. Cohan doing that dance on stage. There's a little tiny snippet of him doing it. It's like James Cagney was channeling him. It's
Yeah,
unreal.
I've always liked Hayden.
Yeah, totally unreal. Much more versatile actor than people ever gave him credit
Oh,
for, I think.
absolutely, beyond, the gangster roles. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So they have this child, and in those days, if you had a child with any kind of a challenge, sensory challenges, intellectual challenges, Like, look what happened to Dorothy Dandridge.
I was going to say there weren't a lot of options outside of hospital institution setting.
There was a big home for girls in my town that was run by the Sisters of Charity, Sisters of St. Vincent de Paul, the ones with the big flying nun type of
Oh,
hats. They weren't identical, but they were
yeah,
similar. You know.
yeah.
As a French order that came out of Vincent de Paul, who started his whole thing because of the poverty-stricken street people, you know, the people that were discarded in the gutter. I remember the description of his life from when I was little, and I read the story of his life the first time, and it was about people in the gutter of the cobblestone streets, and he would help them. And so these nuns, this order of nuns, has dedicated itself to nursing, but also specifically for people who are intellectually challenged, whatever. So this school had a wide variety of girls that lived there and were taken care of, that their family sent them to live there. It was a boarding school. And when I look back on it now, I feel particularly sad because a lot of them were only blind or only had Downs.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, today they would never have been sent off like that. It's very sad. So his family, I can understand why John, the son, his family would have been really pressured to institutionalize him, because that's what happened in those days. And so good for them that they stood up for him.
Sure.
So let's see. Oh, I thought it was interesting that Tracy was such an insomniac.
Yeah. Just, I don't know. It makes you wonder just if there's just a lot on his mind that was hard to shut down.
Well, you know, alcohol causes sleep disturbances.
Sure, sure.
A lot of people addicted to alcohol will drink to go to sleep, but then they can't stay asleep.
Mm.
So they suffer from a particular kind of insomnia. Yeah, it's almost a symptom as much as a symptom.
Yeah, I think that's probably in his case then.
Yeah. So let's see. What else jumps up? I want to get through some more of these stars. So what else jumps out at you about him?
Oh, before I did that, Helen, were you wanting to discuss all 12 today, or are we gonna break
Well,
it? Or what's on?
we could divide it up, or we could let you pick.
Yeah, no, I
things.
wasn't sure, how much time you wanted to devote to everyone, or some more than others.
I could talk about all of them all day long, so you have to put the brakes on.
Yeah, well, I
What do you want
definitely
to talk about? Why don't you talk about the things about the book that you were most?
Yeah, no, I just didn't know how much you wanted to go in today, but I'm certainly willing. I definitely felt like, of the people in the book, my favorites were like Jean Seberg, and I think Jean a lot of ways because I consider Marshalltown, Iowa, to be like my adopted hometown. I worked for the paper there for many years, and I continue to write for the paper there,
which is so remarkable.
Yeah, remotely, and I come and go when I can. It's about an hour from where I live, so Jean's just a big deal where I'm from, and has such a presence today, still even in France. People, I have friends in Marshalltown who would vacation in France, or even visit her headstone there, and you just tell people you're from Marshalltown, and they immediately say Jean Seberg.
Seriously.
So, and we don't have to spend the whole time on her, but I just wanted to be able to say that people in Marshalltown today are just still very proud of her. Obviously, very liberal. So people who are a little more conservative in Marshalltown, aren't as rah about her, but still so enigmatic. And there's even films being made. Bella Luna Productions, I'm friends with the people who have that. They make films in Marshalltown and the surrounding area. There's like a film production company that came.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, Jude is from England, and he came to Marshalltown inspired by Jean. And then he had his film debut at the Orpheum Theater, where Jean's film debuted for St. Joan, all those years ago. So there's still such a big influence on the arts and creativity. There's art associations. I just started a club for writers in Marshalltown. It's called the Write Club, and I meet there monthly for kind of aspiring
For
writers.
you. Good for
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
yeah,
I actually wanted to ask you about that. I
yeah.
wanted to ask you about the arts in the Midwest and how you, I mean, I know you're from the Midwest, so the connection's obvious, but how did you hit on this idea of all these well-known artists, actors who came from the Midwest? And what do you think is the significant common um,
Yeah.
reason? Yeah, the thread. Yeah.
Well, as I had briefly mentioned, these had all been articles in my family business, Midwest Today magazine, which my parents produced for many years. And I wanted to get in on the writing. I'd always had an interest in writing. And so I had pitched the idea of doing, we would always have someone on the cover of the magazine who was more contemporary of the time. And they would be the cover profile. And then I pitched the idea of, how about me doing kind of like my love of old Hollywood, but then the connection would be there from the Midwest.
Like a retrospective, yeah.
Yes. And so
Yeah.
Carol Lombard was my first. Well, the article I wrote on Dorothy Kilgallen started it all initially, but for this book, Carol Lombard was the first person I wrote on, and that was in 2006. And then Luella Parsons was the last one. I think that was more like 2013. So they were staggered through time, and then I, of course, did a lot of editing and adding and tweaking to make it a little more book appropriate. But they were, as I said initially, magazine articles. And, they're all kind of, I would say they're predominantly golden age. Certainly Seaberg's a little younger than what would be considered that era specifically. Jane Russell, too, aging out a little bit that direction as well. Dorothy Dandridge, they're not all the exact same age, but still kind of that common thread of the studio system. I guess you could say they all worked under that. So that's how it started with being articles. And then me kind of thinking, well, certainly, there's the experience of being from the Midwest. I have, ancestors that settled in, Minnesota, Nebraska, originally Pennsylvania Dutch. On my father's side, we have that heritage, and then they came more middle America to Nebraska. So, I'm kind of several generation Iowa. And then on my mom's side, from Ireland, they came to Iowa, kind of like 1830s, I think. So, so I think an affinity. I mean, I think some of us feel like kind of the label of sort of the flyover country is kind of derogative and just, trying to kind of show that there's a lot of talent. There's certainly more than 12 people. I mean, there's Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire, Orson Welles, some other people that I could put in the Midwest category too, and just kind of pick these as sort of some of my favorite, I guess. The list could go on and on. And, just kind of exploring their lives a little bit. And certainly there's going to be a different vibe from, Spencer Tracy being from Milwaukee is not the identical experience to a small town in Illinois or Winnetka or Clarinda, Iowa. So there's certainly kind of a working class, blue collar background, kind of a manufacturing area compared to more rural farming. So there's not just one Midwest experience. And then, of course, Ann Baxter being from Michigan City, Indiana, that's not far from Chicago. So you've got that influence. So I don't know. I think there's maybe a idea of that go west and claim your treasure out west and kind of pursue fame. And I think it's appealing, especially since, as we've discussed, a lot of these people came out of the Depression or close to that era of some kind of economic decline and wanting to get out of maybe the family business or out of the oil wells or the manufacturing job at the plant that could be their fate, so that's kind of the common thread, although they're all from very different parts of the Midwest, right? Different rural versus city is going to be different.
Well, I think it's very easy to be dismissive of, the heartland, right? The Rust Belt.
Yeah.
It's easy to be dismissive, and I think it's a function of, I'm going to make up a term, capitalistic snobbery. That the only thing that matters is your ability to make money. And if you're doing labor. Like you have to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty, that you're looked down on and
Yeah.
sneered at.
Yeah.
And it's very similar to our misperception of people from the past. We look back 1,000 years and we think, well, they must have been stupid. They must not have been as smart as we are. They're not as evolved as we are. I think that similar disdain for the other exists in the attitude towards the Midwest. Am I making that up, or does that
Yeah,
sound?
and certainly, kind of in central Iowa, it's very, there's corn and soybeans. You can even get out of the city not far, and you're already in a rural, trees,
Yeah.
ponds. It doesn't take far to, you have to drive far to kind of be in the country. And yeah, I mean, I think there is kind of assumptions about people who farm or work with their hands or do manual labor, or assume that we vote a certain way. And I come from I feel like a very progressive background, and politically speaking, and that's Iowa. That's not maybe what mainstream news how it wants to portray us. Sometimes
Correct.
we be so embarrassed after a tornado, and we have them, and they find the most stereotypical Farmer Brown guy to interview. Chewing the
Yeah, to reaffirm the stereotype.
and then, like, I know professors and I know people with
Yeah.
PhDs and master's degrees, and I went to the University of Iowa, which is in Iowa City, and it has one of the highest per capita higher education rankings in the country. So,
Well, isn't the writers
right,
workshop is
yeah,
where
yeah,
is it? Is it
it's at the University of Iowa.
okay? I rest my case.
Yeah. So I think, it's nice to be able to kind of show, you kind of feel a bit of an underdog, I think, when people portray you a certain way.
Defending yourself. Yeah.
And I think that's where some of our love for Jean Seberg came out of, because, she was quite, to come back to the book, she was quite savvy to start doing the foreign films that would show at the art houses, and when American audiences weren't digging the pictures that Paramount was putting her in, going elsewhere, and Breathless and being in that film was, the French New Wave, to come from a kind of a medium-sized town in kind of
It's interesting.
Iowa,
Yeah.
to get that far and that recognition. And I know the Sebergs a little bit, her older sister, and I think they were just so kind and supportive. I think they were pretty progressive themselves, but to a limit. She brings home a man who's 20 years older than her, who's got this whole other lifestyle, and I was married during some of this time, and I don't think they knew really what to do with some of that. You come over for Sunday dinner, and hey, what do you talk about? Where do you try to connect?
Well, this is our artsy daughter,
Yeah,
our little hippie,
a little bit, a little young, kind of a younger or older generation,
more like a beatnik generation.
Yeah. So I mean, I just had to throw out that Marshalltown, there's been some economic decline. We had a tornado in 2018 when I was on staff at the paper that did a lot of devastation, particularly in the lower income sections of the town, unfortunately. And it's very immigrant heavy. There's a meat packing plant, a lot of immigration from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador. There have been ICE raids in the history of the town, and it just remains very progressive. And I think Jane would be very proud of that legacy of, people see something wrong in the town or someone at a disadvantage, and there's a committee that forms overnight. I just have a lot of admiration for that. And I think that's Jane Seberg's Marshalltown, where that comes out.
Well, you get a stronger sense of community when you have a lower population and the population remains more stable. When you're looking at both coasts, there's so much flux, people coming and going. The same kind of bonds are not necessarily made. I mean, I grew up on the West Coast, and I consider myself, to have come from a stable community. But, Hollywood is a whole different creature.
To go from that to to Hollywood had to be, or like, Jane Russell. I know you want, to touch on some other people. Bemidji. I've been there on vacation. I
Isn't that in Fargo, the movie Fargo?
well, and of course, Fargo's in North Dakota. Um,
But what movie did I see Bemidji in? Because the name immediately
yeah,
jumped out at me.
yeah. I don't remember about a movie. I feel like it's not a massive town, kind of artistic. A lot of Native American populations in these. They're kind of, lake towns, tourism, right?
That could be it. Because I read a lot of books that take place in the Great
Yeah,
Lakes area. Yeah, I bet you that must be it. Yeah, yeah.
And to go from that out to Hollywood had to be, quite stunning. And, Marilyn Maxwell, she's my other Iowa person in the book. Clarinda's just kind of south of here. And of course, Glenn Miller, I put that in for that recognition of, that area.
Yeah, yeah. I felt sorry for Marilyn Maxwell.
And that's why I called her the Forgotten Marilyn.
Yeah.
Because, you see her, she's just incredibly beautiful, talented. I love her singing too. You can buy albums of her work. It's not profuse, but and of course, in the Lemon Drop Kid with Bob Hope, they debuted the song Silver Bells, which I think is just, I mean, she's, very pretty. And I just think, which way am I? I just
there, you're good.
Cool.
Now come a little closer. Don't go to the side, but now come a little closer.
Like my camera's opposite of what it really.
But look at how similar,
the style.
Yeah, similar to Marilyn Monroe, and they were constantly compared to each
other.
Compared,
and honestly, I mean, to be fair, if your name really was Marilyn, and someone's like, you're copying her, wouldn't you be a little put off by, I'm not copying her, I'm
well, I have this unpopular, relatively unpopular name for my age. I've only met one other Helen in my age group in school my whole entire life, including college. Yeah, it's not the most common name. And if I've heard it once, I've heard it 70 million times. Oh, Helen of Troy. And people always misquote it. The face that sunk 1,000 ships. So you do get a little weary of associations, I can understand. I can understand her being irritated that.
I mean, it wasn't a stage name other than dropping the marble. I mean, that was her name.
Yeah.
But yeah, I certainly thought her relationship with Bob Hope was kind of unique. He and Dolores were married for, I want to say, about 130 years. So
Bob Hope, I don't know about him.
If you know, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, you weren't supposed to. And then
but he was gigantic. I'm sorry, he was a gigantic hypocrite. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And of course, as I delved into, Rock Hudson's story, because I felt like what an icon to include in an article, just how much Marilyn Maxwell was in the story. And I felt like, well, she was deserving of kind of her own chapter as well, it was an article as well originally, and kind of how their lives, circled each other, and how Marilyn, she had a few big roles, but it just never, I don't know. And again, she did the USO and music too, as maybe what clicked a little more for her. I mean, you just wonder if she had taken a part or turned down something or been here at that time, if she would be as well remembered. But I felt like she deserved, I kind of wanted the book to have the people you definitely know, the household names, the Gables, and I don't know who else you want, Jane Russell, people everyone knows, with the Marilyn Maxwell, and giving Jean Seabrook that credit too. I always want her to feel deserving of. And then Anne Baxter, her memoir Intermission is a great read, but there's really never been a full biography on Anne Baxter before. So I feel like I realize everyone's a chapter and not a gigantic book, but if you're looking for stuff on Anne Baxter, this is kind of it. So
that shocks me because of her family origins. I love telling people, guess who her grandfather is, and everyone is always just dumbfounded.
Her mother's, her mother's side on that,
Which wouldn't that be an interesting beginning of a book, like that family history?
Yeah, and of course, her daughter Melissa. There's a few children. There's Katrina with John Hodiak, and then Maginal is the other daughter too. Just about, Melissa was saying that Frank Lloyd Wright was certainly kind of misogynistic. I mean, left that first family. Their mother was a part of that first set of kids, and um, yeah, and that's kind of a whole other story. But I think Frank Lloyd Wright has always been very revered. I mean, there's certainly, that ancestral home was in Wisconsin, so he's certainly big in the Midwest, I would say. And
Yeah.
even kind of, I can even think of people who studied under Frank Lloyd Wright, built houses, and even kind of in Iowa. I think there's some even in my area of who studied under, their homes of greatness. So I mean, I think he's certainly still a very big figure speaking here in Iowa, that people still remember Frank Lloyd Wright. And the whole Lincoln log thing, that other relative.
You know,
So interesting. And Melissa's an interior designer, I believe.
yeah.
She still is.
I'm gonna say something that won't be popular, but I never understood the appeal of Frank Lloyd Wright's designs. I always felt they were cold, devoid of emotion.
Mm.
Yeah, because I'm such a talented designer. If
Yes.
I were going to build a house, I would want it to be cozy and warm and welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
And his designs just leave me flat. I don't even think they're that appealing as for what they are. I know the whole idea of incorporating the natural world and the landscape and all that. Meh. Who needs a house with a water stream running through it?
We love that.
Pardon?
We love that.
I know. And to each his own. But he gets so much acclaim. I never hear anybody saying, so I will.
Yeah, I mean, became so maybe untouchable. Like you just this is right on, you can't. I mean, even Melissa said they weren't always that practical of designs. I mean, she even had some.
Well, it was almost more art.
Yeah,
than something that you would live in. Yeah. And Tally, what's the name of his place that he built? Famous,
like Tallahassee or something.
Tallahassee. I know, I'm terrible. I can never remember.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how else you pronounce it. It's Taliesin.
Taliesin. And wasn't there a murder associated with that house too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's
was it Tallahassee? Yeah, I remember there being.
Yeah.
That was a footnote. I might have to go back and.
Your assignment is to write a book about that. You should write a book about unsolved or perhaps misdirected, unexplained deaths in Hollywood. There are so many. Look at George Reeves.
Oh, yes. For sure. Absolutely. And I think, just to mention another person in the book, Rock Hudson, where we talk about not even just people in my book, but in general, how many stars dislike the studio system, the control, the manipulation. And Rock was almost like, it takes the guesswork out. You just get to just come and take, and
they give you a house,
plan it for me, and let me know where I should show up. Like, I don't know if that's a personality thing. He was just where I feel like almost everyone else I've read about or written about just really fought that. I mean, think of like Betty Davis with Warner Brothers and that big to do there.
Well, Marilyn Monroe. I mean,
Marilyn is another example of, or even who you can marry when you can have a child. The abortionist on staff, and just very controlling of a narrative. And Rock seemed okay with what he got out of it. Didn't he?
Yeah, it didn't. It actually, I think, created structure for him that protected him rather than challenge his creative urges, which a lot of people felt so stifled and constrained. Is there anything that addresses these dictatorial studio heads?
Well, some of my favorite films are the pre-code. I do really like.
Oh, right.
And because I think when you have a background in American studies and history, that's where I got my degree at Iowa from. And I think if you don't understand this era. Like I think a lot of people don't know there was a period of time in Hollywood where you could not, wear a bra and you could be seen doing things or these morally ambiguous situations and the
The
violence and
famous Gloria Swanson in the
yeah,
pond scene.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And thinking
Will Hayes
it
was,
was all, yeah, I think a lot of people my age probably and younger think it was just all this kind of cornball, censored, you can't swear, there's no sex, there's all these things that don't exist. And
twin beds.
that's not true. But there weren't always the twin beds.
No, I know, I
People don't
know.
realize it wasn't always that way. So I kind of forget what you asked me now.
Oh, I don't know. Who knows?
Who knows now? Who knows now?
You know who I forgot to mention that I have to honor because
Yeah.
I just love her? It's Joan Blondell.
I love Joan Blondell.
Oh, good. I'm so
I
glad. I love her. And she was more than just a comedian.
Yeah.
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 She's a great actress.
Yeah.
I loved her. And she went on to act all the way into television. And
Sure.
she was around for.
Zone.
Pardon?
She was on a Twilight Zone. Sorry.
Oh, she was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought she was on some series. She played, the older woman,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love the Topper movies. That could be a whole other conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Because I love Constance Bennett.
Those are great movies.
And I bring that up because Joan Blondell and Carol Landis are in a movie. When Cary Grant got big, he didn't do the Topper movies again. Constance Bennett's not in this one. It's
Is it Richard Crenna, or am I making that up?
Yeah, the Topper Returns movie.
Okay.
It's very cute, but it doesn't have Constance or Cary Grant in it. But it has Joan Blondell and Carol Landis. So yeah, so she's great. I've seen her. I guess about some of the studio system, there just seemed to have been kind of this wave of kind of religiosity setting route, like we have to follow certain moral code, because it did seem to kind of just penetrate everything.
Well, Will Hayes, that's really tied up with the story of what happened to Arbuckle.
Okay.
Roscoe Arbuckle, the story of the death of the woman at the party, and he was tried 3 times. And they had a hung jury until they finally acquitted him. But by the time they acquitted him, his career was essentially destroyed.
Yeah.
And there is much debate and discussion about what drove those indictments. There was the story in the background that he had gotten a little too big for his britches. He was starting to defy the studio heads, and so it all came to a head on a Labor Day weekend. The studio said, well, I want all of my big stars to be here for the weekend. We're going to do a whole promotional thing, and you're going to make public appearances, and we'll tell you where you're going to appear. And he said, I have plans. I've made plans. And he was highest, earning guy, and they didn't like paying him, is really what it boiled down to. And then he defied their authority. So he went on to San Francisco to the party that he had planned, and it wasn't intended to be a wild orgy of any sort. But oh my God, I forget the name of the studio head who sent third world characters, like underworld characters, to get compromising pictures of him, get him liquored up and get compromising pictures. But in the process, this young woman died. And when they started to investigate what really happened, she'd been to visit the local abortionist in San Francisco, and she was about a day and a half post surgery and had an accident that wasn't his fault. But they tried to hang him. They tried to put it on him and destroy his career. And a lot of it was in cahoots with Will Hayes. Now, I'm not saying that Will Hayes was in on the plot to sort of darken his reputation. Roscoe's reputation, yeah. Will Hayes was the postmaster general, and he had maneuvered his way into this position where he became the official government censor of movies
Mhm.
and started to feel his power. They gave him a blank check, basically. And he had a car and apartments and
Yeah.
furniture and travel expenses, and he got power crazy and imposed his weird conservative religiosity and moral values on everybody. Really an interesting story.
It is.
But
Did you want me to try to? I know we haven't talked too much about Dorothy Dandridge or
yeah,
Jane.
go for it. I listened to that thing you told me to listen to last night.
Oh, about her song.
She has a beautiful voice.
She does, and I think that's where telling. Her Dorothy's voice was dubbed for Carmen Jones, which I love Carmen Jones. That's such a really good movie. To be a little more operatic, right? I mean, that wasn't terribly unusual for people who even were known to sing to get dubbed. But yeah, I love her voice. She certainly did the nightclub scenes, was in some great movies, but there was just so much of that racial bigotry and tension
Ridiculous, yeah.
of that time that certainly held her back a little bit. But then Halle Berry played her in the biopic, which is I think a great way to kind of get a glimpse of her life too, if you watch that.
I really liked her early stuff. I preferred her style when she sang as a teenager and a young adult. I didn't really connect with the style of music, the nightclub kind of stuff that she sang. So, but her voice was just so clear, so beautiful. And she was exquisitely beautiful. It's just, were she alive today, she would be taking Hollywood by storm,
She's someone that I don't think is overrated. I think it's easy when time has gone by to really sort of venerate someone. I really don't think she's overrated. Anytime I've seen her, with Belafonte or anyone, I just go, wow, she just really steals the show.
She's underappreciated.
And of course, I know we've touched a little bit on Luella Parsons, and there's that. I don't know how long you wanted to chat, and
just as long as you're available.
Okay, yeah, I know. I'm 2 hours. That's fine. And I know you personally said you're not a huge Jane Wyman person with the Reagan.
Oh, I dislike her enormously.
You do?
I do.
Should we not talk about her then, or what are you?
Oh, no, this is your platform. Go for it.
I mean, I have to say, I've always liked her acting. I mean, I just, I get the Reagan connection. Of course, I think she was certainly a Republican. Don't get me wrong. I think she voted for her ex-husband. But, after she made Johnny Belinda, that's when they divorced. And Reagan had kind of made some comments about, Jane's career being first. And I think then when Nancy came along, this was someone who was going to be a little more pliable.
Oh, shit. Nancy was a piece of work.
I mean, I think that's at least fair to say that Jane had aspirations, a career, and there was a bit of a double standard about she's gone, not with the kids. Well, he's gone as well.
No, I know. I think that was pervasive at the time. I think it was very difficult. Like Anne Baxter talked about that, what a challenge it was to be a mother, that she probably should never have had children, is basically what she said. Because she just never prioritized them, because you couldn't. If you had a career or a family, but you couldn't have both as a woman. The men, of course, just blithely went about their business. And
so Jane was born in St. Joseph, Missouri, which is kind of north of Kansas City. It's a little town. I've been there. And I think she's just, I don't know, I like her roles. There's some movies of hers I just really like. But I think it's interesting that, for so long before our current, I was going to say situation, with Trump, was really the only ex-wife of a president. I think that's an interesting distinction.
Yeah, because divorce is such a stain.
And not that I really want to go on about Reagan, but kind of his platform of these family values and this certain image. And I read Maureen Reagan's memoir, which I highly recommend. It's called First Daughter. I mean, she was kind of a hoot. I mean, there's a lot I liked about Maureen. And she was the biological child of Ronald and Jane. And she said that she and her brother Michael, who was adopted, were very much erased from that presidential campaign
Oh,
because
yes.
so
Yes,
much
they were.
he was
Yeah.
going to look so much older to have these, arthritic, kind of going gray kids, right? They weren't that far from middle age, technically, right?
They
For
didn't fit in Nancy's whole persona, her image,
Yeah.
Yeah, she couldn't have
So
that.
I feel like I do talk a little bit about that dysfunction with the Reagans. You can't
Yeah, you did
help
talk a lot
but
about it. Yeah.
you can't help but merge it a little bit. But I don't know. I think she was just very talented on her own merits. And I'm trying to remember. Oh, it's tip of my tongue. The movie she made with Jack Carson. I did always really like that one.
I don't know because I'll tell you what it is. It's
Have
guilt by association.
you have the block.
And I grew up in Southern California where before he destroyed the country, he destroyed the state.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I
Feel
have, like your father, I have my opinions about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I know there's kind of that you said guilt by association for
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, I mean, I think, and we can wrap up Jane Wyman here, but I think there's definitely a lot of props to playing a deaf mute rape victim in a movie. That's
Oh yeah. No, I
unbelievable.
think it's appeal and talent are two separate
Yeah.
and not necessarily mutually exclusive things.
Yes. And then I
Yeah.
think the last thing I'll say before we can go to our next person is, can you imagine Reagan trying to erase her in this first family, and then she's on Falcon Crest? Like, how do you pretend like she's gone? How do you erase her? She's on prime time.
I didn't know that because I didn't have a television. I didn't know what that was, Falcon Crest, and I didn't know she was in that. So that was news to me, and that really cracked me up because wasn't that when he was governor?
President.
Oh, president. Okay, I
It's
I
like a nighttime soap, like a Dynasty. If
Oh,
you
I never saw
Dallas.
that.
Yeah, it's in that.
Ignorant.
So yeah, I think her acting was really superb, and I think she has an interesting legacy with that ex-wife of U.S. president, and then all these years later not having one until the Marla Maples of Ivana Trump joining that
Debacle. Yeah.
club. I know it's really something to be proud of, but it's a unique distinction.
It's a distinction, and it's an interesting association, especially when you take into consideration that her former husband really never stopped with the acting.
Never stopped acting.
Yeah, that false persona that was projected that we were all supposed to fall for, Uncle Ronnie. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we've kind of hit a little bit of everyone. I mean, I know Luella is kind of interesting. I left her for last, and she wasn't technically an actor like the others, were, but still very with Hollywood.
I'm glad you did that. I think that there's not enough discussion of the kinds of situations that women found themselves in. If we were talking about a man who had the career trajectory that she had, would not raise eyebrows. She'd be another Edward R. Murrow. But the fact that as a woman, she basically had to maneuver her way in ways that men didn't have to.
Sure.
I don't know. I didn't like the job that she dedicated herself to, but I admired her tenacity and her ability to fight all those power structures that were against her.
Sure. And she was from Freeport, Illinois, and started kind of, I think we forget Chicago was kind of a hub of movie making. So she did the scenario writing, coming up with an idea for a plot, and just how rapid fire those were. So she had kind of that movie interest, which I think is kind of unique, but not really from the acting standpoint. And then, of course, the big thing I'd have to say with Luella would be, trying to get Citizen Kane shut down before it was even released. You remember that, because it was the concern that her boss was the Charles Kane inspiration. And so I guess the fact that there was even a possibility she could do it with all that money, and then went to the other studios asking, will you buy it and have it destroyed? To even think that that meeting could be held,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you could just make a call and that would even be on the table, I think says a lot about her power and influence.
But was it real power or was it arrogance?
Well, I think there was a fear, though. I mean, think about the actors that were in Citizen Kane, Agnes Moorehead, Joseph Cotton, they were kind of blacklisted from her column after that. And of course, then whenever that happened, you went to Hedda Hopper, and vice versa, right?
Yeah, I don't fully appreciate how much power they actually had over somebody's career because we're in a completely different media environment. It's
Yeah,
hard to understand. Yeah.
yeah, just that influence of, you play nice with me, I'll get your people and promote you and
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
films, and if not, then it was just like that silent treatment. And yeah, I mean, I felt like that was kind of fascinating. And then, we're talking a little bit about, Marion Davies, of course. That's how she got to her column. She decided she'd be best friends with the mistress. And, that's kind of a fascinating,
Glom onto it. Now,
yeah.
am I remembering this correctly? Was it Hedda Hopper or was it Llewellyn Parsons who was in the boat when the shooting happened with
Yes.
Charlie Chaplin and
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I was
Thomas
actually
Inch?
yeah, I was just getting to that. I did need to just refresh my mind on that. Yes, it was Luella, and it was Thomas Ince, and yeah, it seemed like not long after that she got her column, like
Her job.
kind of covering up on what
There was a
really,
really good movie about that came out a while back. What was the name of that movie? It
yeah,
was so good.
the cat's meow. Yes,
Yes,
I do
yes.
reference, that, allegedly Hearst had killed Ince by mistake, thinking Marion and Chaplin were having something, and, kind of that whole buried quickly, um, like got him kind of a
I
hush.
got lit my cigarette off the gun.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it
yeah,
reminds
yeah,
me a lot of that story, doesn't it?
yeah.
Um, and so you kind of wonder, did Luella know where some of the bodies were buried? And I'll,
Or was she willing to just reaffirm the narrative, and back up the story, giving it that much more believability? It's hard to say. You
Mhm.
know what I wanted to mention that we should have talked about a long time ago, and then I forgot. When all of these people came from the Midwest, and it was not 100% of them, but a lot of the earlier ones came around the same time.
Mhm.
Um, there had been this push in California, like at the turn of the century into the 1900s, 1910s, before the movie industry was actually in California. LA was a cow town. Dirt streets,
Mhm.
board wooden sidewalks. I mean, it was a nothing place. Part of really Alta California, it was more Mexican than it was anything else. And as the movie industry inched closer, they came for the ability to work outdoors, have sets outside, and not be so reliant on the film that Eastman was hoarding and overcharging. So they get out there to California, and chambers of commerce started to get dollar signs in their eyes and started a campaign across the entire Midwest. Come to California, the land of sunshine, orange trees,
Mhm.
and movies. And they sold kind of a bill of goods to ordinary people who were having a rough time during the Depression. That's why so many people emigrated from the Midwest into California. It wasn't
Yeah.
just the end of their economic support,
Mhm.
but it was also this allure, this promise
Yeah.
of
Um,
the golden
yeah.
place to come.
Yeah.
And people often say El Dorado, but El Dorado originally wasn't a place; it was a person. It was a king and everything around him was gold. And then the place that he was started to call El Dorado. But that was that idea, Shangri-La, come there.
Mhm.
And so that's how so many people got lured, not just people in the acting business or hopefuls in acting.
Mhm. Yeah, makes sense.
So I'm going to ask you something as, to finish off this conversation, as somebody raised in the Midwest. What impression were you given from your larger community of California when you were growing up?
Oh, um, I mean, I think glamorous, certainly more cosmopolitan than rural. Not really thinking about rural areas. Disneyland, oranges, a lot of oranges. The coast, big, big. Multicultural. I mean, certainly a Mexican influence. Certain kind of border towns. Um, well, I mean, I'm a big Murder She Wrote fan, so I know that Mendocino is really where it was filmed in California.
Oh,
So,
really? I've never seen it, so I didn't know, but I know it's Angela Lansbury,
oh
right?
yeah,
She's a big Broadway star.
oh yeah, she's like one of my all-time favorite people, just in general. So I know about kind of Northern California being very different from,
Oh, it's very
more,
different. Yeah.
more Los Angeles, Santa Monica, wherever.
Well, you said Disneyland and then you said oranges, and it cracked me up because when I was a little girl, and it's not, I mean, I'm not that old. Uh, Disneyland is basically, it's in Anaheim.
Mhm.
And we had friends who worked in Anaheim on a dairy farm because that whole area was groves of trees like citrus, walnut, and cows. When you started to approach, you knew you were approaching Anaheim before you were that close because you could smell it.
Oh
There
no.
were that many cows, the cow manure for like many, many miles from out of
Yeah.
town. Yeah. And it underwent this gigantic change because of Walt Disney, and then here we are today. But that whole area was very rural until the mid 20th century. I guess what I was hoping you were going to say, so I could laugh,
Oh,
was, Californians are crazy. They're all, into alternative lifestyles and
oh,
alternative religions. And
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think Scientology. I remember even just in the grocery store, the tabloids. Like my parents just rolling their eyes. What's
I
there?
think that's kind of the prevailing attitude in
Yeah,
California, too.
yeah. I mean, we weren't fans here. I think we.
No, but Californians, I think, if I'm not mistaken, have the reputation for being kind of out there, kind of a little odd, a little crazy. I'm always defending them because you hit the nail on the head when you said multicultural.
Mhm,
California is very open-minded and accepting of
mhm.
people, and that isn't always well received in other parts of the country.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Well, yeah, but you're not necessarily typical. I mean, you made a very persuasive argument for the Midwest being more open-minded, and I think you're right. But there is definitely the perception that Californians are a little just wild. They're kind of the problem child of the
Kind of a wild
country.
card. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
On the East Coast, they're all intellectual snobs. In
Mhm.
California, they're all busy meditating and doing yoga. And,
Surfing.
yeah, right, surfing,
Boy,
right. Yeah, absolutely,
everyone has a
absolutely.
surfboard. I'm sure you do too somewhere, right?
No, no, we body surfed.
Oh,
And
okay.
here's the irony of that. I didn't know how to swim.
Oh.
We used to go to the beach all the time and get into the Pacific Ocean all the time. I had no idea how to swim. I
Mhm.
knew how to get myself in and out of the water. I guess it's just sheer luck that we didn't get pulled out by a riptide. But you kind of knew where those were, and you kind of knew to avoid them. They weren't necessarily in every single beach. But yeah, there's definitely more of an outdoor culture in California. But it's not where I grew up. It wasn't the hardy hiking boots, knapsack on your back.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
was more hanging out at the beach.
and I think people have that impression too of New York. They think it's just New York City, and upstate New York is very different, or the mountains in New York. You know, like I think those are the two states I think that can be kind of stereotyped of being a certain way.
New Jersey. I
Yeah.
mean, I think of New Jersey. Everybody thinks of New Jersey. They think Newark.
Hmm.
New Jersey's the Garden State. I mean, it's, farms and stuff. So I
Yeah.
think we all misunderstand each other. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, I could
mm,
talk to you all day, Sarah. This is so much
you
fun.
too.
So you need to hurry up and write another book. Or do you have another
Thank
one?
you. I don't have another full-length book. You know, I'm a newspaper journalist, magazines too. So I think I'm kind of more used to a shorter form. And I write kind of speculative fiction, flash fiction stories, even kind of in the horror genre. I like kind of a psychological thriller kind of vibe, very Twilight Zone influence. So I do get some short stories published periodically in different anthologies. And so that's been kind of a focus of just kind of shorter form. And then the journalistic side of things. And I do some book editing as well.
Well, you mentioned that you like true crime.
I do.
So let's end this on the real topic that obsesses us all. What's your take on the Idaho student's murder? He just pled
Yeah,
guilty. He took a plea.
yeah. You know, I don't think I've been following it super closely. I've seen maybe it was a 2020 or something on that originally.
Oh, it was probably Dateline. My
Dateline.
favorite.
Yeah, no, I love those. I don't know a ton about it. It just seems so senseless though. I didn't like
Well, if you
the
don't know a lot about it, let me tell you what you can do. My friend Denise and I have a podcast, and we kind of put it in hiatus for a while
yeah.
because the platform was bought out, and then they wanted to start charging us, and we were like, too cheap too poor, to be paying them. But we found someplace else, and so we're working on season 2. And I don't know, have I ever told you about it? I'm not
I
sure
remember
how.
you mentioned it. Can you say it on YouTube?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Psychics and psychos.
Yeah. See that when I heard that, I laughed out loud. Because I
Thank
wasn't
you.
because I wasn't sure if these were the same people or these were two different, like you could be a psychic and a psych. I wasn't sure where you were.
Yeah, what it really
Little
meant. Well,
crossover.
that's good because it might invite people to pay attention.
Yeah.
Well, we're starting out our second season, and we've already recorded a couple of them. One is up, the other's coming, and we've got probably at least 3 more episodes of the same case, which will, I'm sure, ring a bell for you, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. Oh my God, this may be the craziest story I've ever heard in my life. I'm not kidding. And I am a true crime fan. I love a good mystery. But we decided we're going to do the Idaho thing since he's took a plea.
Yeah, I heard that.
He
Yeah.
can't sue us. So we're going to.
Yeah.
And oh my God, there are layers to this guy. It's really, really, really disturbing. So it'll be good. It'll be interesting.
Sounds like it.
It's the appeal of the psychopathology, trying to understand what makes people tick. And I think you do that in your book too. Like what makes these people who they were, it's really interesting.
Yeah, kind of.
Well, I will wait with bated breath for your next publication.
Well, I appreciate.
And if you do a short one, come back and talk.
Yeah. I mean, you've been so generous with your time for my father and me, my Dorothy book, his Maryland book, and now my Going Hollywood book. So we do really appreciate your graciousness.
No. It's absolutely selfish on my part. I'm enormously entertained. And, I love a good book. I love a good writer. I love a good story. And here we go. All 3, all in one place. It's absolutely wonderful. And I have to tell you that people have been really engaged with the story. I hear a lot of comments from people, they get in touch with me. And a lot of people are grateful for the distraction.
Yeah, I've read that on your post.
Things are hard, and we're all desperately grasping at something to elevate us out of this for a while. So I was so grateful. And I'll be quite truthful with you. You know, you sent me the 2 books and I covered the one and I put the other one down. And I have a little round table downstairs that new book comes and I put the next book on top, you know,
Okay.
and your book got buried. And about a month or so ago, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I need something lighthearted. And what have I got in this pile? And this
Yeah.
pile is becoming top heavy. It's getting scary. And I started to go through it and I went, oh, perfect. I had forgotten. So I will admit that I had forgotten that you gave me the book. So thank you.
Oh, and that's fine. No, and I appreciate you doing it. I mean, it's lighthearted on the one hand, yet there's a lot of tragedy too
Oh
with
my God.
these
Yeah.
stars. I mean, it's a diversion of current events for sure, but I don't discount their struggles or hardships. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful of that either, of the accidents or a plane crash or suicides or overdoses. I mean, it's very sad endings for some people, you know, in the book too. So I definitely appreciate your interest and the entertainment value of it too, and then
Yeah.
kind of honoring them too. A kind of
Yeah, that's well said.
memory,
I get
you know,
distracted. I really enjoy the gossip and the little tidbits, and they
gossip.
kind of overshadow. I try not to focus as much because, you know, just goes to show you life is hard and things don't change all that much over the decades. But people are people. And that's the lesson I take from it. You know, just because you're from the Midwest or you're from California or you're enormously talented, people are people.
Yeah, those same core innate feelings and desires.
Yeah. Same issues, same problems, same challenges, repeated. Yeah. Well, thank you. I so appreciate it, Sarah. It's so much fun. Give the baby a big, gigantic kiss for me.
I will.
And we'll be back in touch because I'm hoping that you're going to do some sort of feature article on somebody, and you're going to tell me so that I can have you come back and, you know.
Yeah. No, I'd love to chat. And like I said, I love the true crime and forensics. And I think there's lots of things we have in common to revisit.
Psychics and psychos.
It makes me laugh.
If I remember, I'll send you a link.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to thank everybody who's watching and show Sarah some love. Buy her book. Where is it here?
Oh, yes. On Amazon, paperback, ebook, and then on the pageturnerbooks.biz, you can get signed copies of any of our books.
There we go.
That's your style. I love signing copies. So that's super fun for me too. It makes a nice gift.
Oh, yeah.
From an author. I mean, I have, and I'm not just saying that for me, but I have a section of books of people I know, relatives or friends, and I love just that personal touch of an autographed, inscribed copy. So
I recently had a discussion with my children when I die, because I cannot get rid of my books. I've tried over and over, and when I die, it must be noon.
oh no.
Please go through each book and check for signatures.
You never know.
I know. All right. Thank you so much,
Thank
Sarah.
you.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. Slán na foill. Slánte.